Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community, we were to go racing with 4-door D-Class cars. Actually, surprisingly limited selection of vehicles because a lot of kind of hatchbacks and so on, they've gone for the 2-door variant for this. So we had to get a little bit creative with our car choice, which made things interesting. Our first race was at the Brands Hatch Indy Circuit. I was driving a Ford Country Boat and found myself going 3 wide into turn 2 with an Aztec and a Dodge. We did make it through cleanly. I could carry plenty of speed around the outside of turn 2, and that would see me get past the Aztec, and I'd find myself up into second place. The sheer acceleration in the Ford was enough to see it past a BMW. While it was a little bit of a handful through the corners, it wasn't too bad. I got a bit of a slide out of the final turn. The Aztec was amazingly coming with me as he would get up into third place on the inside of the BMW there. Further back, as you would expect perhaps, at Brands Hatch there was plenty of close racing early on. This Astra was trying to make his way up through the order against an Alfa Romeo 75. The Alfa just a tiny bit of a locked brake coming in towards turn 1. That gives the Vauxhall the opportunity to go for the cutback, tries to get to the inside on the run up towards the second quarter, just about gets his car alongside, but we saw, much like I did with my Ford, if you do take that wider line, if you are stuck on the outside of turn 2, you can sometimes get a very, very good run off of it. The Alfa was bouncing his way across the curbs ever so slightly. That won't help, and the Astra is pushing his car as hard as he dare on the exit. Turn 3, still they go side by side. Unfortunately, not all would quite go so well for these pair. The Alfa Romeo got a massive two-wheeled moment. Amazingly, though, the Astra gets away with that bump, recovers it, with the Alfa dropping a couple of positions. It was frantic up at the front. While I had taken the lead, made a mistake, and now dropped back into the mid of this group. Lexus was fighting with the Dodge. The Aztec was still very much in the mix here, up behind a BMW, although it runs wide a little bit through turn 1. Behind a car runs even wider. It was absolutely crazy. And this is why I love racing the lower classes of car. This is the kind of racing that you get going on. The Dodge is still busy fending off the Lexus. I'm busy fighting my way past an Alfa 155 and do finally make that particular move stick. The Lexus has finally found its way past the Dodge. The BMW is now lining up to have a join in with that group. And then, of course, we've got the Aztec not that far behind it. You know, the Aztecs weren't actually particularly slow in D-Class. As strange as it is to say, they can actually be built to be half decent. Now the Dodge is coming under fire from just about everyone, as the BMW would find his way to the inside, and that just leaves a lovely gap for the Pontiac to find a way past, as well as we come down this start-finish straight. I'm absolutely flying with the Ford. I've got tremendous straight line speed, but I'm stuck on the outside into turn 1. I know that there's not going to be anything good come of that one. I duck back into line. I try to get a good run out of the first corner to dive at the inside of the Pontiac. Can't. He covers that inside line. The Dodge is fighting back against the BMW on the inside through turn 2. The Alfa Romeo has spotted an opportunity to get on the inside of my Ford, although once more doesn't have the power, doesn't have the acceleration to deal with the Country Squire. The Aztec is still stuck in behind this BMW and Dodge. There's just nowhere to go. I've once again got mega acceleration in the Country Squire. I'm up alongside the Aztec and round the outside of it. We all get a little bit clustered in around that section. It's 3 wide coming out of the final corner. The Alfa Romeo running out of grip though on the outside, and unfortunately ending up in the sand trap. I would get the move done finally on the Aztec, go chasing after the Dodge. It was crazy, this midfield racing. It was crazy, but it was really rather good fun. We'd already seen the Alfa Romeo had one big two-wheeled moment. He was now trying to recover from that one. Once again, finding a big group of cars to go pretty much wherever you looked in this one. You can kind of just see it's a long line of cars racing each other, and this went on throughout the entirety of the Brands Hatch race. It worked really bloody well. The Alfa 75 here getting a really good run out of turn 2. Poor BMW makes a mistake. He ends up out wide, and that's going to cost him 2 places. When you're racing in groups like this, you just can't afford to make any mistakes. He almost lost a third as the Holden has now joined in the fun. The 155 is a little bit wide. BMW thought he could spot a gap on the inside. Couldn't quite make that one work. Now the Alfa 75 is able to run away a little bit from this group. But yeah, the racing at Brands Hatch here was just incredible, and still this group, these cars were squabbling for position. I would get my country squire through the group, mainly making the most of its incredible acceleration. The Dodge was still desperately trying to fend off that Aztec. Behind them you can see a Volvo 850 fighting with a Subaru Legacy. The Astra was coming to join in the fun. Up ahead, the BMW is making a move on the Lancia. Lancia had led for so long but made a mistake and dropped back. The Aztec would go round the outside of the Dodge to get the position, and if you can do that, as I've said before, you get to the inside for turn 3, and that is a pretty damn solid pass. These Aztecs were really holding their own in a racing situation, and I know that is a weird sentence to be saying. The Astra was just about joining the tail end of this group. The Vauxhall, surprisingly quick through the corners, but was struggling a little bit with straight line speed. He would manage to find a way past the Subaru as they leave this final corner. However, would immediately come under fire. It's not a particularly long straight here, but it was long enough for the Subaru to get back up the inside as we run through this first corner. It's a nasty first corner here at Brands Hatch, and being stuck on the outside is often a little bit on the scary side. You certainly don't want to have an argument with the curbs around that part. The Subaru did have a little bit of a gap, but that immediately evaporates as they come through turn 2. The Legacy was a little bit wide, kind of bounced his way across the curbs, and that would be all the opportunity that the Vauxhall needed to dive up the inside of the next corner and get the position. You can see ahead of them still the squabbling was going on. At the very front, it would be a Lexus, was pretty much gifted the lead after I'd fallen off the track and dropped back. The Lancia fell off the track and dropped back as well. The Lexus was mighty fast, and having got to the front, made no mistake. I would like to have raced it to see what would have happened between the Lexus and my country squire. But yeah, managing to stay out of trouble and just not making any silly mistakes was the order of the day. I had worked my way back up into third place, and as we headed on to the final lap, I was determined to find a way past the BMW. Had to go up the inside at turn 1, but once more we saw a similar thing. If you're on that outside line, if you can get a good enough run off the turn, you will keep your car alongside, and it's really awkward to go around the outside of turn 3. I'm almost run out of road, but I keep my foot in it, and the acceleration of the Ford is enough to propel me up into second place, although the BMW is fighting back through these turns. Of course, the BMW quite a bit better around these corners than the giant boat, but the giant boat has got the acceleration as I managed to hold it on the inside of the final turn. I can make the most of the power of the torque in the country squire to get that second place. BMW coming home in third, a great drive from the Aztec coming home in fourth. There was some other very, very close races going on further back. The Alpha 75 had rejoined this group of cars with another big two-wheeled moment down at turn 1. We didn't see anybody roll over, although, yeah, the curbs here are really, really rather vicious. The Subaru is having a look at the back of the Dodge, just tags the back of the Neon ever so slightly. That gives the 75 a mega run around the outside, and the 75 would get a position, although it doesn't kind of defend the inside. The Legacy is more than happy to spot that gap to dive in. The Dodge is a few metres up the road, and Alpha 155 has come from a fair way back, closed massively on this final lap to join in. The 75 runs too wide as we're going to go side by side into this final corner. The poor 155 is again stuck on that outside. Jeep Grand Wagoneer is closing rapidly as well towards the end of this lap. In the end, the 75 tried its best but couldn't quite do anything about the Legacy straight line speed at the end there. A fantastically hectic race at Brands Hatch, but an awful lot of fun. Race number 2, and we would head to the Sebring Club Circuit. Forza was being kind to me in terms of starting positions for once. Doesn't make a bloody change, as my country squire would start towards the front, and a very, very quick launch would see me up into second place by the time we leave the second corner. Cadillac limo was leading the way at this stage, and it was an interesting top three with a limo leading two country squires. It wasn't likely to last necessarily, but interesting. Nevertheless, limos are notoriously difficult to get past. It can actually be relatively quick in lower classes of racing because they're so long. Trying to get passes around the outside just simply don't work, and they can be relatively fast accelerating. However, I spotted a gap in a very, very sideways limo. I didn't realise during the race, I only saw in the replays just how massively wrong things went for the limo. The rear wheels on the grass will do that for you. Kind of bounced off the side of my car and went straight in the limo up. But yeah, I'd found myself in the lead relatively early on. It was never likely to be quite as crazy a race here as it had been at Brands Hatch. Brands Hatch Indy Circuit does lead to some absolutely chaotic racing, good fun racing in the lower classes. Here at Sebring, things did spread out a little bit more, but still there was plenty going on in these opening laps as a Commodore would find a way past a Volvo in the background. This BMW was to go to the outside of a Holden as the Holden fights its way across the curve. You really don't want to turn in too soon at that turn one bit. The curbs on the inside are very nasty. You see how much it slowed down the Holden there as the BMW would get around the outside. One car that was on the move through the field, an Alfa Romeo 75, trying to work his way past a couple of Volvo 850s. The vehicle ahead tried to go late on the brakes, just left a little gap, couldn't get it slowed, couldn't get it turned in time, just left a little gap on the inside. The Alfa is more than happy to have a go through there, and as you run through the next couple of fast corners, the 75 would get the position. The Volvo had to be aware there was a big Shelby Raptor behind him, ready for any opportunities. Speaking of Shelby Raptors, we had one further down in the field, was battling with a BMW and a Holden as we come through the first corner. Of course, the big Raptor not likely to have quite so much trouble across the curve. The BMW would out-drag the Holden on the run off of turn one. The Ford would get very, very brave around the outside. That is a seriously quick corner. While there isn't a puddle of doom there to worry about in this particular race, that is a seriously quick corner, and we go around the outside of a Commodore in a, well, Shelby Raptor. That is a hell of an overtake. That is, yeah, definitely a scary place to be getting a pass done, but the Shelby got the move completed cleanly. Back towards the front, and the limo was still holding on to second place, but coming under increasing pressure from the Alfa Romeo. I had bucketed off at the front. This track really suiting the country squire. Again, coming through this quick corner, the limo is happy to run wide there. It means you can go onto a defensive line into this next turn. He was hoping to try and force the Alfa Romeo around the outside. Well, he does. The thing is, the Alfa Romeo is so quick that isn't a problem. Going around the outside of a limo is seriously difficult just because of the sheer length of the car. But the Alfa Romeo had so much more corner speed than the Cadillac. He was able to make that move work. Further back as the race progressed, it got considerably more spread out. Down here, this BMW was busy fighting with a Volvo, trying to find a way past the 850R. Gets a great run down towards the next corner. It's not the easiest of overtaking spots, though. Down here, it's a very, very short braking zone, and certainly, you know, while turn one here is the obvious overtaking spot, there are only a couple of places that are really sort of clear-cut ones as the Volvo is continuing to fight through these next turns. If you can keep the car alongside, the nature of this circuit does sometimes make it quite difficult to get a pass completed, as the BMW is finding out. Still, he's stuck alongside. The Volvo does finally get the acceleration, get the straight line speed, and if you can out-drag the car before you come down towards this first corner, that is always helpful. The BMW covers the inside. Volvo looks to go for a cutback, but is unable to do anything about the BMW. Again, further back, there was the big car battle, the big truck battle. Cadillac, Escalade, Ram Runner were involved, both trying to find a way past a poor Holden that was probably not in the most fun of areas. The Cadillac gets a quite good run out of this first corner. He's up alongside the Holden. It's too wide. The Ram Runner is right behind them. Got better speed than the pair of them. It goes 3 wide into the next braking zone. The Ram Runner would come out on top as the Holden is desperately trying to cling on around the outside. Can't quite do it. The Dodge would get the position, or get the 2 position. That is a phenomenal overtake. Probably one of the best overtakes we have seen for quite some time. Going 3 wide there with normal cars is incredibly difficult. Going 3 wide in a Ram Runner against a Commodore and an Escalade that is one hell of a pass. So, yeah, definitely the most spectacular of overtakes we've seen for quite some time. At the front, I had got the lead early on, and this track really suited the Country Squire. It was pulling away. I made a little mistake on the final lap, but I was so far clear of the field. The Country Squire taking victory. The Alfa Romeo 75 coming home in second, while the Cadillac Limo would end up on the podium in third. Certainly, yes, still a rather interesting podium in that particular race. Our final race, we would go to Laguna Seca. A little bit more of a longer circuit, a bit more of a mixed track as well. The Alfa 155 here tucked in behind my Ford. I get a good start, but there's kind of nowhere to go down towards turn 1 here, especially when everybody fans out. I get a little bit caught on the outside of a Lexus. The Alfa Romeo is going to dive to the inside. He then gets boxed in by the Lexus, and I'm happy to, again, making the most of the acceleration in the Ford. The Grand Wagoneer would be joining in as well, getting a great run out of that first corner. He would get the move done on the Alfa Romeo. He then tries to get to the inside of the Lexus, goes for a big dive, but can't quite get the car stopped. The Alfa Romeo is going to cut back to the inside and take almost 2 of the positions, gets the Wagoneer, but the Lexus actually managed to make some good speed on the outside of that corner, and once again the Alfa Romeo is trying to kind of cut back, but it's just a Lexus, a giant blue Lexus in the way, and then he's going to lose the position once more to the Wagoneer as we run up towards the top of the hill. The Alfa Romeo wisely not wanting to fight his way around the outside of the Jeep. The Lexus is off building sandcastles as he would lose all those hard fought for positions. The Alfa Romeo looking and thinking about having a go at the inside into the corkscrew, but can't quite do it on this lap around as a Lancia Delta would fight with the Lexus. The Lexus though managing to fend off that position. Certainly an exciting opening lap for these guys as we run through now some of the faster corners. Again, we would have some of the larger vehicles, the Ram Runner racing in this field against our Lancia Delta. Looks so absolutely ridiculous, but the Ram Runner was going for it. Around the outside of turn 1 is difficult at the best of times, let alone a giant pickup truck almost makes it work, but the Lancia is just too quick through those corners. The Dodge though, fantastic acceleration. Of course, in D-Class the Ram Runner is going to be ridiculously heavy, but it's going to have a lot of power, and that four-wheel drive means you can fire it out of the corners very, very quickly. Not that it's very quick through the turns themselves. You see, struggling a little bit against the Lancia, though carrying great speed at that particular turn. Then you make the most of that acceleration down the next straight, and the Ram would be to the inside. The Lancia fighting back. Unfortunately, the poor Lancia would disconnect at that stage, which ruins the fun of that race. Big two-wheeled moment, though, from the Ram. The difficulties is trying to keep this car around the track. It does love going up onto two wheels, and through all of that, it is now being caught by a Holden. So, yeah, plenty of busyness going on. This race would be the quick stop race of the evening. Quite a few vehicles you can see going on in the background electing to pit early. Nothing too bad though going on this time. We didn't have a sudden rush to the pits on the first lap, so we didn't get too many cars coming out and getting stuck in traffic. This Alfa 155, perhaps the worst of the vehicles affected by the traffic. It wasn't terrible though. We have seen plenty of times where, you know, big groups of squabbling cars decide to pit to try and avoid other people, and everybody has the same idea and everybody all gets stuck in traffic. That didn't quite happen so much in this one. Yeah, the Alfa a little bit compromised for half a lap, but yeah, nothing too terrible. Towards the front, and it did start to spread out relatively quickly. Again, we weren't going to have quite the same trains that we had going on at Brands Hatch. This was a fight for third place between Holden Commodore and the Jeep Grand Wagoneer. These two cars remarkably evenly matched, despite, well, the silliness of them. We've seen before just how incredibly good the Wagoneer is when it comes to cornering for whatever reason. The Holden Commodore, though, is without doubt one of the best handling cars in the lower classes, so the Jeep was having to work really rather hard to try and find a way past. The Jeep is to the inside of this next fast turn. That's not going to bother the Holden too much. The Holden has got some fantastic corner speed and is more than happy to run around the outside and make it as awkward as possible for the Jeep. And the strength of the Wagoneer. It's going to have more power, it's going to have more torque, it's going to have four-wheel drive. It actually launches out of the corners very well. While its top speed isn't a match to some of the other vehicles, it's the acceleration and launch out of the corner that the Wagoneer has going for it. It's trying to make the most of it, but everything the Jeep is throwing at the Holden has an answer for now. Around the outside, that particular corner is not an easy one to do, but by the time they get to the corkscrew again, the Jeep is that little bit too far back to really try anything, and this is certainly helping us at the front. We were managing to pull quite a nice gap. It wasn't really hindering these cars. They were a fair way ahead of the rest of it, like you can see here. They're a fair way ahead of the rest of the field, and still the Wagoneer is looking and pondering for a way past. It just couldn't quite do it, although the Holden would dive into the pits at that stage. A little bit further back, this was going on. You can just about see the Wagoneer up ahead. The Lexus was trying desperately to fend off another Commodore. The Commodore, relatively popular choice, unsurprisingly, really, as I said, low-class cars. The Commodores make fantastic handling vehicles. This one managing to squeeze up the inside of the Lexus and get the move done. A little bit risky not covering the inside. Could have quite easily have had the Lexus dive up the inside if it had got good enough brakes to compete with the Commodore, but there we go. You see behind them the Ram Runner wasn't that far behind. You know, that thing was really holding on well around this circuit. At the front, the Alpha 75 would leave it until the penultimate lap to dive into the pits, as would the Jeep Wagoneer. It was all about who had had the better in-lap, who had had the better out-lap between me and the Alfa Romeo, as we had been close, although not sort of full-on battling in the early stages of this race, and the Alpha 75 had just extended his lead a little bit throughout the pit stops, as you see my Ford slide through shot. And while the Alfa Romeo would run a little bit wide on this final lap, allow me to close up to the back of it, I just couldn't do anything. I'd spent an entire race stuck looking at the back of the Alpha 75 that I just couldn't do anything about. The Alfa Romeo was too strong through these final few corners, and while I had much better acceleration, much better speed in the Country Squire, I was never quite close enough, and this was one of the closest I had been all race as I left the final corner. The Ford was coming so quickly down towards the start-finish line. There's nothing I could do about the 75. The Alfa Romeo taking victory from my Ford. The Jeep Wagoneer would end up claiming third ahead of the Holden, the Jeep getting a better in-lap than the Holden. However, the closest of finishes would go with the Ram Runner. So the Ram would also go for a pit stop on the penultimate lap, and as he left the pits, that would spit him out into some traffic. Not really the thing you want to see as you crest turn 1 for the poor 850. I mean, the 850R is not exactly a small vehicle, but cresting turn 1, there's suddenly a Ram Runner on the inside. Leaving the pits is less than ideal. The Dodge is looking, trying to find a way past, but doesn't have the grip to fight with the Volvo. He does, though, have the acceleration, gets a much better run down this relatively short straight, but still the Dodge can make the most of it. Again, though, the Volvo's happy to give him the inside. The 850R knows that he's got the grip to maintain the speed around the outside, although still the Dodge is not giving up, and we're going to head too wide through this next corner. That is not a huge amount of space. The Ram Runner is a very wide car. The Volvo isn't exactly small. They make it through, though, too wide, as the Dodge would get the position. Another great overtake from the Ram Runner. The Lexus is now joining in and spotted an opportunity as the Volvo got forced wide. The Lexus would move up a position as the cars are throwing their way down the corkscrew, and now the Lexus is on the attack against the Ram Runner. This is the section that my Country Squire struggled with, and it's going to be the section that a heavy Ram Runner is going to struggle with too. The Lexus around the outside, a wheel on the dirt, the car wiggling all over the place, gets the position. The 850R spots his opportunity as well, sweeps around the outside of the Ram Runner as we head now down towards the final corner. They're still fighting for position. The Volvo's trying to have a go at the inside of the Lexus. He can't quite do it. Another Lexus is coming to join in. The fun now comes the strength of that Ram Runner, that great acceleration, but it's not quite enough. The Volvo would just fend off the Dodge. An incredible final lap between three very, very different vehicles, but there we go. Yeah, some really incredibly good fun, close racing in this one. some of the sort of slightly crazier cars were actually really holding their own. We saw the Ram Runner, we saw the Aztec. Hell, my Country Squire was actually a stupidly fast D-Class car, while it was a little bit of a handful through the corners. It more than made up for it with acceleration. It wasn't so bad through the corners as well that it wasn't competitive. So yeah, we saw some interesting results. I love my Country Squire as a D-Class car. I think it was fantastic. Probably will be my D-Class car of choice for some time, because yeah, it really was holding its own there against the other vehicles. Had a lot of fun with these lower classes of vehicles. However, that is going to be it for this versus community. The next one shall be on Thursday, the 28th of July. We're going to go racing with some cycled production. So if you'd like to sign up and take part in that, then you can via our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus community section, and you can sign up in there. But that'll be it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.